Hi, I'm Dave Foster, News Director at First City News on WVUB Radio and WVUT TV at Vincennes University. And as the 2026 primary election approaches, we're taking a closer look at several races that impact Knox County. Our coverage includes the Knox County Sheriff's race, along with the races for State Representative in District 45 and State Senate in District 39, which covers all or parts of Knox County. Several local residents are running in those races. At the county level, we chose to focus on the sheriff's race only because of time restraints and the level of interest we expect from local voters. And for contested races, we conducted a series of on-camera interviews using the same set of questions for each candidate. Those questions were provided to the candidates in advance, so each had the opportunity to review them before the interview. When invitations were sent, candidates were told the final videos would be around 5 minutes in length, but during the post-production process, we made the decision to include each candidate's full responses. Because of that, the total length of each interview may vary slightly from one candidate to another. During the interviews, candidates answered in their own words and were given the option to restart a response if they felt they misspoke or wanted to clarify a point. Restarts were also used to correct interviewer errors. Because of that, you'll notice some visible edits. Those edits reflect restarted responses and standard production cuts. They do not change the content or the meaning of what was said. For races with unopposed candidates, we used a written questionnaire with the same set of questions to maintain consistency in the coverage. Those candidates' responses can be read online on our websites. Our goal is to provide a fair and consistent format and let voters hear directly from the candidates about the qualifications and priorities. Over the next several segments, we'll share the interviews, and candidates will appear in the order in which they were scheduled. So just introduce yourself and explain what led you to run for sheriff.
Okay. My name is Mike Fisher, and I am, like you said, the Republican candidate for Knox County Sheriff, one of them. I started with the department 22 years ago and have been there employed ever since. It's kind of a question to always ask why you're going to run for sheriff. You know, I think that kind of leads more to the fact that it would be easier not to. So it says a lot for someone that steps in that wants to run for an office and step up to that manner. The simple thing would be kind of go off quietly, but there's a old saying that Edmund Burke had said that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. So to answer your question, mine is for a calling, a higher calling, just like what had put me into law enforcement all those years ago.
All right. So how do you define the role of Knox County Sheriff?
Well, the sheriff is a very unique position. It's an elected position. It's not appointed, and it's the only constitutionally based law enforcement that we see. Knox County is very unique in that it's a very old sheriff's department, 1790, as you see on our patches when we wear it. It's very important to remember that the sheriff's duties are, by statute, maintaining the jail, court security, paper service, and also answering calls and those type of things on the road. So it's a very important job. You're looking at a budget of just over $8 million a year that's dealing with a facility that's just been added onto, which will max out at about 356 beds. Over 70 employees there at the sheriff's office, so we are the largest employer as far as staff goes. So there's a lot of encompassing matters that go with being sheriff, a lot of important stuff there.
So what are two top priorities if you get elected?
Two of my top priorities are, I had just released, I'm very interested in looking at programs. We have inmates that come in and they already serve in different programs like the LAM program and these type of things. I would like to work on and adding skills, work skills and labor skills to some of the inmates while they're in there so they can achieve some understanding, some certifications that will help them get out once they get out of the jail and into society and work in that area. Second, I'd like to go back to some more of our community-based programs that I've started over the years and that I've worked with, civilian firearms programs and these type of things. But another one that's kind of close to my heart is social media. You hear a lot of ads and things coming from the state level talking about kids being bullied and basically forced to do things by doing things. We need to really work on this because social media is such a huge platform. We see it on national news right now. There's a large lawsuit going on with this. It's something that needs to be addressed, something that we need to hone in on to help these kids get away from some of those stresses and struggles that go on with that.
So how would you approach managing the department's budget and resources?
Well, I currently, in the position I am as major on the department, I work with the sheriff that's currently in office and have for the last several years on the budget. We see things fluctuate within that budget, such as meals and feeding the inmates, clothing, equipment. Of course, obviously the jail is an enormous building, so there's a lot of maintenance that goes on there. So finding ways to cut those corners and help work with other local elected officials such as the council how to best set our budget and use that and work with each other to have a good functioning system.
So how will you maintain transparency and public trust within the department?
Public trust and transparency is something that I do believe in. I think that we confuse that sometimes, and people confuse that, going back to that social media thing, that anything that we see or read on the internet has to be true. For us, I think it's important by having those programs that I talked about before, like Civilian Firearms Program, and even something called a Civilian Academy, which allows the public to come in, do some scenario-based training and some training with us to show them the type of things that law enforcement officers deal with, and lets them see firsthand. So transparency is important, but I believe it needs to be real transparency.
So why are you the right choice for Knox County Sheriff?
I'm the right choice. I've been doing this job, like I said, for 22 years. So in doing that, I've maintained supervisory roles over many positions. I was a detective for 10 years. I'm currently the supervisor over the detective unit. I'm currently the supervisor over the SROs, or what you guys would know to be school resource officers. These are deputies that are assigned to the schools. And I've been a part of that since we started that here in the county. I've proven leadership here, being within the department and being into these positions and working hard cases, working cases that nobody else wants to really be a part of. So it sets me in there to be able to shoulder the weight of those things and be able to lead the men and women of our department into the future.
So introduce yourself and explain what led you to run for sheriff.
Hi, my name is John Fuller. I'm currently the Chief Deputy of the Knox County Sheriff's Office. I live here in Vincennes with my wife of 27 years, Stephanie, and our 3 children, Bradley, Sydney, and Tyler Fuller. My journey to wanting to become sheriff is different than my opponents, I'm sure. Growing up, I never even thought about being a police officer. When I graduated high school, I went to work for a local contractor, and about 10 years later, I started my own construction company building and remodeling homes here in Knox County. After the Twin Tower attacks of 9/11, I, like many citizens, found myself wanting to give back to the community. I saw an ad in the local paper that the Knox County Sheriff's Office Reserve Unit was taking applications, so I applied and I was accepted. I just loved the job. It was great. In 2007, there was a jail officer position that's open. I applied and was accepted. And in 2008, I was promoted to road deputy. I worked the road for the next 8 years, and then I was promoted to captain. After that promotion, I realized I wanted to go farther in law enforcement to focus on my leadership role. I applied for college, and on my days off and weekends, I went back to college where I obtained a master's degree in criminal justice and human services. In 2019, I was promoted to major, and then to 2020-21, I was promoted to chief deputy, the position I currently hold.
So how would you define the role of Knox County Sheriff?
The sheriff is the highest law enforcement officer in the county. He's elected by the citizens of Knox County. But first and foremost, he is a public servant, and he must keep the citizens of Knox County and hold them first. He's a leader and a businessman. He's compassionate and caring, but yet firm and fair. Indiana law says the most important role of the sheriff is to maintain the jail and the courthouse security. So knowing how these operations work is a must.
So what are 2 top priorities if you're elected sheriff?
My first priority would be to continue the progress we've had over the last 4 years. I will continue to hire, train, and equip the best deputies and jail officers that we can. As chief deputy, I've written policy and procedure to maintain clear direction in the day-to-day activities of the sheriff's office. For the first time in history, we now have a hiring process that's merit board approved and locked in, so another sheriff coming in can't just hire his friends or whoever he wants to. This also helps to make sure that Knox County gets the best deputies available. Secondly, I want to see mental health and drug addiction addressed in the jail. Repeat drug offenders cost our county taxpayers a lot of money. If we can get them the help they need while they're in jail, we can keep them from reoffending, thus saving the taxpayer money. We have LAM, or Life After Meth, and we have several local pastors come in and speak with our inmates, but I want to go further with that. I want to get with our current medical provider and have them bring in their psychiatric care providers in to work with our inmates directly. I also want to use more peer recovery programs like RISE. to help make this happen.
So how would you approach managing the department's budget and resources?
Each year, the sheriff must prepare the sheriff's office budget. I've helped the sheriff in the last 4 years prepare the budget. I know it now is around $8 million a year. I manage and purchase all the purchases and inventory control of the department, so being fiscally responsible is a must. In the last 2 years, we've got the two most expensive items, food and medical care of the inmates. We've done this by reaching out to vendors and finding cheaper vendors that will provide the same or better service for less money. This saves the taxpayer money. The sheriff's office is also in better financial shape than most county offices because we are the only office that actually produces income for the county. Last year, we brought in over $1.2 million housing inmates for other outside agencies.
Okay. How will you maintain transparency and public trust in the department?
I'm currently the public information officer for the Knox County Sheriff's Office. I write the press releases and I manage our social media accounts. As your new sheriff, next sheriff, I will continue to release information to the public in a quick, reasonable, and responsible manner as the law allows. My door will always be open to anyone to come in and talk to me about anything, and I want to ensure public trust in myself and the office.
So why are you the right choice for Knox County Sheriff?
With my education and real world experience, and my over 20 years of law enforcement experience right here in Knox County, at the Knox County Sheriff's Office, I believe I am the right choice for your next Knox County Sheriff. I'm a devoted family man, and I lived and worked in Knox County my entire adult life. Being chief deputy, I already know what it takes to be the sheriff, so I don't have to spend time learning the job. I can start on day one, continuing progress this administration has made in making Knox County a safe place to live.
Introduce yourself and explain what led you to run for sheriff.
Glad to, sir. So my name is Dan Short. I was born and raised here in Knox County. I graduated from Lincoln High School back in 1995. Shortly after I graduated, I began my military career and serving my country. That would span about 21 and a half years combined between the U.S. Marine Corps and the Army National Guard. 8 years in the Marine Corps was infantry, 13 and a half years in the Army National Guard was as a military police officer. The Army National Guard time also ran concurrent with my civilian law enforcement career, which is currently entering its 19th year. The reason I was led to run for sheriff is I believe the community wants a sheriff that's going to be dedicated to the community, be open to listening to the community. I believe I can bring my experiences from a former agency and experience as a community police officer here to show Knox County what you can do with a community-oriented policing program that we haven't seen yet.
So how do you define the role of the Knox County Sheriff?
So I would define my role as a sheriff primarily as the elected head of law enforcement here in Knox County. You have several responsibilities. One's taking care of course, the money for the jail. The other is making sure our courthouses are properly secured, our schools are properly protected, and making sure that the jail's running as efficient a manner as possible. In addition to making sure that our towns and unincorporated areas of the county are properly patrolled and protected.
What are two top priorities if you're elected?
Well, that's a great question. I mentioned earlier the community policing program. What that basically means is having an open door to the community, listening to their cares and concerns, not only listening to the cares and concerns, but taking action on them and then getting back to the community with the results of those actions. Oftentimes that also, a piece that we're missing sometimes is our transparency with the community, getting information out to the community as quickly as possible, which can include body-worn camera footage if necessary, in as timely a manner as possible without, of course, interfering with the investigations.
So how would you approach managing the department's budget and resources?
Well, let me back up for 1 second, if you don't mind. The second priority that we talked about would be a reorganization of the personnel we currently have, redistributing some of the personnel that we have to better distribute our supervisors and deputies across the road patrol day and night. This would increase public safety, decrease our response times, and overall it'd just be of benefit to the county as a whole.
So again, how would you approach managing the department's budget and resources?
So a big part of the sheriff's responsibility, of course, is the budget. First priority of business, should I be elected and take office, would be sitting down and looking over the books, just taking a look at all the programs that we have in place currently, see if there's anything better we can do to save money. If it's currently the best, then there's no need to change it. A big part of that is listening to our staff, because a lot of times the best ideas come from the bottom up, not always top down. So we look at it from that way. Another big piece of the budget oftentimes gets overlooked, I think, is that a vast majority of the money, of course, goes to paying benefits for our personnel. And those are our most valuable assets at the sheriff's office. So by taking a look and moving people around with smart staffing, that's fiscally responsible. And then creating an environment where they're well-trained, anybody would want to have them, but yet you treat them so well they don't want to leave. Fiscally, that saves us money, not only in the cost of replacing them because of employee turnover rates, but in the cost of a loss of experience. And experience is one of those things that you just can't go out and buy. It takes time to develop and nurture. So we want to make sure we take care of our people. In the long run, it saves us money.
So you touched on this a bit, but how would you maintain transparency and public trust in the
Sure.
department?
So all that ties back to the beginning statement with community policing. A big part of it, a lot of folks are familiar with and have heard the term coffee with the cops. I think we should probably rename it like donuts with the deputies or something fun. But in all seriousness, it's getting out in the community, listening to the cares and concerns, addressing those cares and concerns, and then going back to the members of the community and letting them know, this is what we did, this is how we took care of it. Please let us know if it continues so we can readdress it. And then it also goes back to the public transparency, making sure we get information and body cam footage if it's needed, released in a timely manner without interfering with our investigations.
So why are you the right choice for Knox County Sheriff?
I believe the next sheriff, I believe any sheriff, should have a well-rounded and diversified resume, not only in law enforcement, but in personnel management. In addition to documented years of experience to include calm and cool decision-making in adverse situations. And I offer both. And I also believe the next sheriff should have an eye towards the future, not be satisfied with doing things the way they've always been done, be willing to make changes to improve our department overall, with the simple goal of making or keeping Knox County the wonderful place it is to live and work and raise a family.
If you would, just introduce yourself and explain what led you to run for sheriff.
My name is Paul Jones. I've been in law enforcement since the year of 2000. I was actually a graduate of Vincennes University in 1999 with an associate's degree in law enforcement. I became a patrolman in the city of Bicknell for 8 years, and I was also a chief of police for 8 years. And then went to Knox County and been with them for 11 years. So just the years of law enforcement, following through, and just all the experience I have.
So how would you define the role of Knox County Sheriff?
A public servant, being in the community a lot, keeping the peace, just trying to keep peace in the public, and maintaining the jail and getting out in the community, and making sure we have good officers in the schools, our county schools, making sure the jail management, everything process goes right.
So what are two top priorities if you're elected sheriff?
The technology, trying to keep up with all the technology in the field, with myself coming in with the years of experience coming off of a typewriter ear into computers, from body cameras to non-lethal, lethal weapons, making sure the guys are trained well in that areas to use the weapons and the technology.
So how would you approach managing the department's budget and resources?
I've been in the, I've worked with different budgets when I was a chief of police, and keeping good community relations for the councils, county council, and working good with the commissioners and in the field with that, and trying to see where we need the money the most in that area.
So how will you maintain transparency and public trust in the department?
Just trying to get out in the community a lot, be seen, make sure my deputies are seen, a lot of officer and public communication, making sure that's all still good, making sure that, they see us as a good guys at times, not just there for the bad things, and trying to help the community out that way, making sure we're in different functions in the county. And for most is keeping public, everybody peace from all the engagements that's going on in the whole county, try to keep everything peaceful and safe.
So why are you the right choice for Knox County Sheriff?
Just my years of experience of law enforcement, being in the community. I grew up here. I was born and raised here. And being out in the community and talking to people and just trying to keep peace and make sure everybody's safe.
Those are the Republican candidates running for sheriff in Knox County in the May 5th primary. There is one Democratic candidate running unopposed. And again, because of that, we did not conduct an on-camera interview, as that candidate will move on to the general election in November. The Democratic candidate for Knox County Sheriff is Brian Hagan. We provided him with the same set of questions given to the Republican candidates. His responses are available on our website to read. We'll now move on to the contested Republican primaries for Indiana House District 45 and Indiana Senate District 39. So if you would, just introduce yourself and tell voters why you're running for office again.
My name is Bruce Borders. I'm state representative from House District 45 here in Southwest Indiana. And the primary reason I'm running, I know it's, people have said this before, well, I'm doing this for my children and my grandchildren, but I guarantee you that's absolutely true. I look at some of the issues that we're fighting today, some of the, what I would class as spiritual or moral issues, and I'm definitely, without a doubt, one of the most conservative and constitutional members of the General Assembly on either the House or Senate side. And so I enjoy and feel it necessary to fight the battle for the sakes of the future of our children and grandchildren. And I want to be back in that battle and make sure that they have an opportunity for religious freedom in the future, the same that I've enjoyed throughout my life. And there's a lot of attacks on the family, on the church, on people's spiritual lives, and I'm in the middle of that battle fighting in behalf of religious freedom, and I'm looking forward to, with the Lord's help, going back and continuing the battle.
So how do you assess the most recent General Assembly session, and what aspects of the legislation were you most pleased with or not pleased with?
I thought it was a good session overall. I've often said that short sessions, this was the short session, the non-budget year. It seems like anymore what we kind of almost do is we take a long session and just squish it into a shorter period of time. But overall, I felt it was good. A couple of the committees that I do serve on, I serve on 3 different committees, but I serve on the Insurance Committee. I also serve on local government, and on local government, I felt like one of the key bills that we dealt with was House Bill 1001. And one of the things we do realize today is that, if you look at it's across the nation pretty much, families are struggling to purchase homes. And so House Bill 1001 on that particular bill, and that went through a committee that I vice chair, again, the local government committee. I serve as vice chairman on that. But on that particular bill, we did away with a lot of the regulations, a lot of the mandates, local mandates and so forth in the construction of new houses. I mean, there's still, obviously, it's got to be a safe home and so forth, but we did away with a lot of the red tape that's necessary in building structures just to make housing more affordable, particularly for young families. I mean, for everybody, but young families in general, because the average age of people buying their first home has really bumped up a lot, and the cost has a lot to do with that. So the goal was to lower the cost. And then in the Insurance Committee, one of the bills that we dealt with was the cost of hospitalization. And historically, unfortunately, Indiana is one of the highest rate states in terms of hospitalization, not due to state statute, quite frankly, but it has to do with, quite frankly, your hospitals. A lot of it has to do with insurance companies. A lot of it has to do with the pharmaceuticals. And so basically, one of the bills that we did pass, authored by, it was either authored or sponsored by Martin Carball, but nonetheless, what we did is we told the hospitals, particularly the nonprofit hospitals, listen, you've got to hit a median figure by a certain point in time, and this year is when that study begins. Otherwise, the state will step in. And so what we're trying to do is to work to make healthcare more affordable for families, and that's an issue. If the Lord allows me to return up there will continue fighting that battle. I mean, we've been working on that, but it's this year was it was definitely a deep dive into that area, and so ultimately I felt like that issue is one of the most important, is just to make healthcare more affordable for the average Hoosier family.
Okay. You've already kind of alluded to that, but the next question is, what is the top issue facing District 45 right now?
Well, that's certainly one of them. And then, one of the areas as well that I think that we're going to be dealing with as well is keeping our young people in the area. And one of the things that I would like to see us do is, or I guess I might be going into the next question about what would be some of my plans, but I think the healthcare costs, and then also and then providing economic opportunities where, again, young people don't feel the need to move off to the big city, so to speak, but they can actually, stay in this area and feed their families.
So beyond that issue, other priorities you would focus on if reelected?
Yeah, one of the issues that's, I actually have a grandson who's autistic, a beautiful young man. His name is Andrew, and Andrew is 16 years old now. And he's 15 years old. Okay, I'm getting it straight here. But, Andrew has some special needs, but he's, he loves the Lord, just a beautiful young man. And my daughter Bethany and her husband Isaac and Andrew and his two brothers, they live down in Texas. And, and with the autism, he does struggle in a typical learning environment. But PayPal, you've heard of the PayPal, the payment system, they actually help fund a program where children with special needs can actually go into, and I don't know if they just do it in this particular technical trade, but in welding. And what you find is that kids, particularly on the autism spectrum, are very literal and very focused, and very, very smart, can be very, very smart. And anyhow, he's, he struggles with traditional school, but he loves his welding class. So in fact, when they come up to visit, he frequently will bring little projects that he has welded together to show us different welds that he's doing and so forth. And so that's one of the things that I would like to work on, but not just for children with special needs, but I would like to see us work with corporations to say, hey, is there something here that we can plug students into where they can actually get a skilled trade, that they can actually see how this can apply into their real life. And so that's one of the issues I want to work on is in the education field is to, in essence, bring out opportunities for kids to where they can absolutely, as soon as they're out of school, they're plugged right into something.
So how would you work with lawmakers from both parties to move legislation forward?
Actually, I already do that. I mean, most people are really surprised when you show them a list of all the bills that have passed, how many bills have a large majority of both Republicans and Democrats. I mean, there's actually not really a large percentage of the bills that are that divisive. I mean, those are the ones that get all of the attention. It doesn't. Man bites dog gets a lot more interesting than everything went well today. And so the bills that are the most contentious, they do tend to get all of the they get all of the attention. But the bottom line is that actually most bills pass with overwhelming support. I mean, it's just like the House Bill 1001 on the housing and so forth. Both Republicans and Democrats realize the need for affordable housing for families, and so you had a large amount of support. And the vast majority of bills actually do get not only vast support, but a lot of times they'll have both Democrat and Republican co-authors on those bills.
Okay. So why should voters vote for you?
I show up for work. I literally and I've served for 20 years, and I'm not ashamed of saying that. People go, well, haven't you been in there too long? No, the bottom line is I show up for work, and in all of those years, I've never missed a day, literally never missed a day. Now, I did have one day where I had a radiator hose blew out on a vehicle, had to drive home and borrow my wife's van, drive back up. And so when they logged us in for attendance, it showed me not being there. But the bottom line was I truly was there. But that day was early in session, and there weren't any bills that they were voting on that particular day. But the bottom line is, the voters sent me up there to do a job for them, and I take that very seriously. And so if I'm being paid to do a job, I'm going to show up for that job. And I do. I show up every day. In fact, one day I was even in the hospital, and I told them, I said, listen, once they start voting, because I'd already studied out the bills, I asked the doctor, will you please release me? I was up at IU Med Center, and they said, only if you promise to return. So the state police took me over to the hospital to begin the exam. I was having an esophageal issue at that moment. It's healed, I'm fine. But to make a long story short, I got a call that they were beginning to vote again. They took me back to the State House. I finished out my day and then returned to the hospital. And again, in all fairness to the doctors, it wasn't a life-threatening situation. But the bottom line is I show up for work every single day.
So first, just please introduce yourself and tell voters why you're running for state representative.
My name is Kellie Streeter, and I am a longtime county government employee going all the way back to 2005, where I started in emergency management as a deputy director. And then I moved on throughout to Daviess County as their deputy director, and then the administrator of the health department. And during that journey, while I lived in North Knox and Freelandville, my commissioner seat came open, and I then ran because of my sense of understanding how local government works, how it should work together for continuity of all forms of government and business. I ran for commissioner and won. 10 years later, I stand here to run for the Indiana House of Representatives on that experience over the years of managing a vast transportation system, a very large hospital that serves many counties, and really understanding day to day as a mother what it takes to pay a mortgage and also put kids in school. So it felt natural to run, and I'm here as a local official that's ready to go work at the State House.
So how do you assess the most recent General Assembly session, and what aspects of the legislation were you pleased with or not pleased with?
Well, in my position as past president of the Indiana County Commissioners, I've been at the State House for about 4 years. As some of our lobbying team leads, I've testified amongst the years, and this year was a little different. This session was short. Budget session's always very active, but saying that, they started out early, and redistricting was something we haven't seen before, and it became a rollover into that short session. So there was a lot of hurry. There was some great bills that were introduced, especially the House Priority Bill around housing. But with the time constraints and so much pieces to work through with the local governments, it was a good start. So I do look forward to that next session, being more involved in those discussions, hopefully as a representative. But I think there's a lot of great people in our General Assembly. I think that we will see an election, which kind of also has everyone a little different this time of year. But there's still a lot of great work to be done and a lot of great people ready to go.
So what is the top issue facing District 45 right now, and how would you address it?
Well, in my experience over the last 2 years specifically, I have found property taxes is becoming more and more of a real concern on top of other living expenses and inflation across the board. But I recently saw a poll in our House district that included data from Farm Bureau's membership, which is very large. And they, even in our district, said the same. The cost of property taxes, the fluctuation on ag land, all of the changes that are proceeded to be coming, how is that going to affect their services? So property taxes is so confusing. And I think as a taxpayer myself, when you get that bill in the mail, it is so confusing. What does it mean and why and how did it get here? So I want to be a part of working on that system because it is identified as a priority. Secondly, there are housing as well. We've done a vast housing study amongst the districts, the different counties, how do we find a solution to that to make it easier, quicker for building and permitting, but at the same time, keep the costs down. So that is going to be definitely, or is an issue that I hear quite often. And then, of course, roads. As a commissioner, I'm probably a little jaded because I hear a lot more about roads than most might, but it is an issue of my gas tax, but my road's bad. How is that going to be addressed? So top three, I would say I hear the most about.
So beyond those, are there other priorities that you would focus on if elected?
Absolutely. Right out of the gate, a bill that I believe locally that I've learned would be introduced is property tax sales. I don't know if you've been to one or anyone has seen that process go, but here in Knox County, like many others, a company comes in that we trusted many counties wide, and they sell the property, and there's a lot of adjacent landowners, there's a lot of other local people there, but someone out of state has sent someone, and they buy up and they bid up large properties that are really meant to be in the locals' hands. So, and then they sit dormant, vacant, trees fall, houses are in decay. And I want to address that. I look forward to having that ability. But I will always stand on home rule. That is the foundation, the basis. I will make sure that is maintained, which is an action, but it is where I stand firmly. We have, from, as I mentioned, our fuel taxes or our excise taxes, all the way to our property taxes. We should be able to have a say in how those are levied and how they're not. But to do some hard work, housing is a big deal in Indiana. That is definitely going to be a priority of mine, to follow that along and how we can build in rural Indiana and still receive the same benefits of other urban areas. Behavioral health and mental health. I've been a part of the governor's mental health commission in the past, behavioral health, and I'm on the board at Good Samaritan Hospital here in Vincennes, and I understand the challenges we face with Greene County, Sullivan, Good Samaritan hospitals, and then the services to wrap around an individual so we can have a judicial system that isn't so extremely burdensome and costly. So that's a lot. Energy, what side of that? That's going to be a major priority of mine to follow. How do we make sure our energy bills are affordable? At the same time, how do we move forward where Indiana is no longer an importer of energy? So big priorities, big issues, but I'm ready to go.
So how would you work with lawmakers from both parties to move legislation forward?
I've done that a long time locally. As a county commissioner, you don't just have the counties or the county that you worry about. The cities are the county. And we have to work together, and politically, we are not on the same ballot. Socially issues, we don't always agree, and many others, but for the most part, we want what's best for our county. And I've had to mediate and broker many times us to work together. So I am by nature a mediator. I do enjoy a good debate. However, I appreciate getting good work done. And I also know that sometimes bipartisanship is the only way to do it.
So why should voters vote for you?
Well, I am very accessible. Throughout the years, I've formed many paths to contact me, to meet, available. That is not going to change. I also, constituent services, as I mentioned, is very important, and I want to be involved. I take this very serious, and I want to learn about the chambers and the Rotaries and the community programs and the addiction programs and how the jail is managed all across the spectrum. I want to be in the know. So I will be there listening and understanding and learning. So when bills are faced to me, I understand our district and the needs of our district. I also, I'm a hard worker and I'm ready to go to work. I have the ability to author legislation. I will work those bills for us and be a part of the larger team effort for the state.
Please introduce yourself and tell voters why you're running for state senate.
Hi, I'm Jeff Ellington. I'm Republican, and I'm here today to ask you for your vote to be your next state senator. I'm married to my wife, Hope. I have 2 children, Lincoln and Lindsay, and my first grandchild, Liliana. I'm a career retired firefighter, small business owner, and horse farmer. I have experience in local government and as a state representative. I'm here today to help bring jobs back to our community, to make a thriving community. And with better jobs and a thriving community, everything else gets better. Better educational system, better roads and bridges, better parks. Property taxes are too high, and that's one of the focuses I will commit myself to.
So how do you assess the most recent General Assembly session, and what aspects of the legislation were you most pleased with or not pleased with?
So what I liked about Senate Bill 1 during the last legislative session was that property taxes were reduced for homeowners with a 10% tax credit. Also, farmers got deductions on their calculations of how their properties are assessed. That went for 2 years. Also, businesses got a relief on personal property taxes that have balances of $1 million or less, and that tax bill will be zero. What I'm sort of disappointed in is property tax relief did not go far enough, not long enough. And with my experience, I hope to bring down property taxes, create jobs, and make our community a better quality of life for everyone.
So what is the top issue facing District 39 right now, and how would you address it?
Jobs, the economy, and property taxes in that order. We all have to have better jobs for our communities. Look, our small communities are shrinking and some are drying up. We need jobs here locally, close to our kids, our grandchildren, to further stabilize our communities. My experience of bringing jobs back to this community, cutting the income tax, and making a good policy climate for businesses is what it's going to take. And I have those experience, and I'm asking for your vote to help bring back and save our small communities in Southwest Indiana.
So beyond those issues, what priorities would you focus on if elected?
Job creation and our economy is key to having growing and prospering communities. Small communities have been forgotten over the last several sessions. I will not forget you. I will come into your communities, talk with you, listen to you. I think that's key. Have the ability to reach out to other lawmakers across the aisle and even with our own party to make sure that they do not forget our small community in Southwest Indiana. Job creation is key, and it will bring revenue and job growth to bring taxes and more income for our schools, our roads, our bridges. And it's just a great opportunity to bring those things back to Southwest Indiana.
So how would you work with lawmakers from both parties to move legislation forward?
I think being able to explain each bill or each issue, each different part of the community has, is key. Being able to answer your phone, for me to come into your community and to listen to you and understand what all the details is, either what's working or what's not working for you. And taking that message across the aisle and in the State House. And not only the State House, but our local public officials, cities and towns, county commissioners, county council, and right up to the White House to make sure that the plan here for Indiana is what's best. And I think I have the experience of working with all those involved and a great record on bringing those plans and those jobs and creations back here to this community.
So why should voters vote for you?
Look, I'm just like you. I'm an average guy that's seen a problem. Our communities are shrinking. It seems like our small towns have been forgotten with those in Indianapolis. When I was in the State House, we had a great voice working together, bringing more dollars and more programs back for roads and bridges, community crossing grants, investments in our educational system. I was not only a county councilman, but county recorder full-time retired firefighter, small business owner, and a horse farmer. I do a lot, but what I am great at doing is focusing on the task at hand and listening to make sure that I know what your problems are and listening to what you think the fix might be. I'm a phone call away. My cell phone is on 7 days a week, except for church on Sunday morning. I take calls. I come visit. I tour the factories. I got experience in farming. And I tour with the farmers and the local companies and the schools. And that's what it takes, is someone that's open there, has an open mind to listen and to be there for you. I'm asking for your vote to be your next state senator, and I appreciate that.
So if you would just please, introduce yourself and tell voters why you're running for state senate.
So I'm Kristi Risk. I've been married for 34 years. I have 4 children, 3 sons who are active duty in the military, a daughter. My daughter has my first granddaughter and only granddaughter for now until my son and his wife are having their first child in July. So I'll have 2 granddaughters at that point in time. I've been a small business owner. I've worked in the halls of Congress, and I currently work for the state of Indiana as the Director of Government Affairs. I understand that from the perspective of the rural communities, common sense way outshines big bureaucracy demographics. And so I'm running for the seat to just be a voice for this district. I am a problem solver. I've got good ideas that I want to take. I want to fight in the Senate for our district. I feel like we've been a flyover district for many years, and it's time that the Indiana State Legislature takes notice of Indiana District 39.
So how do you assess the most recent General Assembly session? What aspects of the legislation were you pleased with or not pleased with?
So I was very pleased that the House and the Senate both were proponents of supporting the big, beautiful bill that President Trump put out. We saw some great things in our legislature, especially the SB 243, which addressed overtime and tips. So I was very happy to see that for our constituents. A couple other things, we addressed the penny issue. So now you don't get pennies when you get your change back anymore. We also address the loan interest. So if you buy an American-made vehicle, you get to write off your loan interest up to $10,000. We worked with the Department of Revenue so that now constituents can get their tax information electronically. I think that's a huge benefit to a lot of people. Oh, and we updated the adoption credits. So now 20% up to the federal or up to $2,500 adoption credit. And that's been huge. My one concern is these are great things. These are great wins, but they expire. So in 2027, we're going to have to address this in the state legislature on whether we want to keep these things or if we want to terminate them. And I want to be there fighting for our constituents to keep these and not let them sunset.
So what is the top issue facing District 39 right now, and how would you address it?
So I think the very top issue right now is infrastructure and rural funding. So we have a real need in our district to make sure that our infrastructure is meeting our pace of growth and that we're continuing to see our communities and our small rural counties funded. And so, one of the things I think that I have a concern with is how our funding happens for our roads. So we currently use an algorithm that looks at our population and how many license plates that we sell each year or register. And, that's going to, of course, that's going to pander more to an urban where they have higher population, more registrations, and that really hurts a small community. So I would like to see the infrastructure for our road funding based on miles. And I know we did have some adjustment to miles, but we've always looked at center miles, and this time it was how many lanes. So again, that panders to a larger suburban area that's going to have a lot more lane miles than we would locally. Some other issues that I think is really important to remember is that our gas tax, so it kind of dumps into a bucket. The gas tax, the diesel tax, all dumps into a bucket. 63% of that tax goes to NDOT. Only 37% goes to rural communities. So another area that I think we need to address, because people are always like, well, if I'm okay to pay the gas tax if it's funding the roads, but I'm not so sure that we're actually getting those roads funded the way we need to with that algorithm.
So beyond those issues, what other priorities would you focus on if elected?
Yeah, so of course, energy independence. I'm a very huge supporter and proponent of coal, keeping our baseline costs low. I oppose premature retirements. I think it's really super important that we support the federal emergency fundings like what we had with the Schaefer and Kellie. Because, during that storm, Fern, Schaefer provided 285 million watts of electricity and Kellie provided 30. So that was paramount. That keeps the power from being shut off. So definitely a proponent of that. Data center accountability, that's a huge issue in our district. We have to have transparency. I think we need to make sure that we protect home rules so that our commissioners and our counselors are having the say and that they're involved in these transactions. So I think there's a lot of transparency that we need to hold our data center entries accountable for. And it's really important to me that we incentivize Indiana first fueling, so that we're buying our fuel and buying our resources from Indiana first. I think a couple other things that I'd like to address is our economic growth. So reducing regulations. By 2029, we're supposed to have reduced 25% of our regulations. And I think we need to really look at some of our outdated regulations and make sure that some of our sunsetting regulations go ahead and sunset. That will help with the smaller businesses. I'm a big proponent of permitting dashboards. So as a small business owner, when I would apply for a permit, a lot of times it would be a long time. There'd be silence. I wouldn't hear anything. I'd be calling back. Sometimes you're just getting an answering machine. So I really would like to see a dashboard where you can go in and your permits are kind of in real time tracking so that you can keep up on what's going on. I like a one-stop shop for, instead of going to several different agencies, you kind of go to one stop for that. And then I'm really big on allowing small farms to be able to sell directly to the consumer. So I'll continue to advocate for that. And again, I am a home rule gal. So making sure that the local commissioners and councils have the say in their counties is big to me. One other thing, or actually two other things, rural hospitals. We have a $207 million grant coming. I think it's very important that we make sure that money is going to the hospitals and it goes to them in block grants. So a lot of times we set these limitations on grants, and then if you don't meet the exact criteria, it goes back. Well, I think we need to give them block grants because they know best how to use that money. And I also am a proponent for, in the smaller communities, standard procedures, not having to have those pre-authorized, because that creates a lot of overhead for the hospitals. And then on the police, fire, and EMS, codifying that to be essential so that they don't have to continue to fight for every dollar based on political whims.
So how would you work with lawmakers from both parties to move legislation forward?
Yeah. So one of my skills is problem solving and negotiating. I'm a very good listener. I enjoy listening. I get out and I talk to people all across the district now. I mean, I'm the director of government affairs for everything south of I-70. So I'm constantly in meetings with commissioners and council members and directors of economic development and learning and listening. I believe that the way you get more passed and you get more done is by listening and working together. So I will be a negotiator on behalf of our district.
So why should voters vote for you?
Well, I've signed the front of a paycheck. I've raised a family of heroes. I know how to cut red tape, and I've got some ideas for solving some of the problems that we have in our district. So I believe that I'm going to be the best candidate because I've got relationships, I've got network, I've been in this, I understand how it works from the federal to the state, and I'm a fighter. I'm not going to go up there and be a seat warmer. I'm going to be making my voice heard. I'm going to be advocating on our behalf. I'm going to be bringing our commissioners, our council, people in our district that want to come up and see how it works and be a voice and testify on behalf of things for our district. I'm going to be working with the people in the district. And one other thing that sets me apart, I want an advisory council. So I want one or two people from every county on an advisory council to stay in touch with me, to help hold me accountable, and also so that I have some place that I can bounce things back and say, hey, this is what's happening. This is what they're looking at doing. What are your thoughts? For me, I would appreciate the honesty, the open, the transparency. I'm accessible. My phone number is available. Anyone's able to call me, 812-821-2490. That's my phone number. You can text or call me and I will talk to you. I want to be transparent and I want to be a communicator with our district so people know what's going on. So for those reasons, I think I would be the best candidate for the Senate, and I would appreciate votes on May 5th.
So if you would, just introduce yourself, tell voters why you're running for state Senate.
My name is Tanner Bouchie, and I'm running for state Senate because I love our community. I want our community to be the best place to raise a family and grow a business. I'm doing both right now. And when my daughter, who just turned 4 years old, grows up and decides where she wants to make her home, I hope she sees our community thriving to where she wants to make her home here.
So how do you assess the most recent General Assembly session? What aspects of legislation were you pleased with or not pleased with?
Well, the short session that we just finished was filled with activity. And for the most part, there was a flurry of bills filed that many people were trying to prevent from passing, the bills they didn't like, and it was a mad rush to the end. What I really would like to see is a productive long session coming up where we address property tax assessments and standardize them to be more transparent and build confidence in the system so that so the taxpayers know how they're being assessed and that they're being assessed fairly. That's one aspect of the property tax reform that's has yet to be seriously addressed, and we need to address it.
Okay. So what do you think is the top issue facing District 39, and how would you address it?
Absolutely. We need to address affordable and reliable electricity, and there's nothing more affordable and reliable than coal. Our entire way of life depends on the fact that when we flip a light switch, the lights come on and it doesn't cost us too much money. For too long, we've invested in less reliable, less affordable forms of electricity. We need to invest in what works.
So beyond that issue, what other priorities would you focus on if elected?
We need to make sure that our rural emergency services are sustainable and well-functioning into the future. Things like volunteer firefighters and EMS workers are critical for our rural way of life. And every department I talk to is struggling for recruitment and retention and affording equipment. We need to have sustainable solutions that help those organizations thrive because they are the glue that holds our community together. It's also an economic development driver because when we have effective fire coverage in particular, that brings down insurance rates to allow businesses to invest in the community. Furthermore, we need to cut the Indiana gas tax. Basically, nobody drives more miles or bigger trucks than we do here in this community. So to the extent we rely on the gas tax, that disproportionately harms our community. So those are two major issues that I think we need to get right. I'm also pro-life and I support the right to keep and bear arms. But those are my priorities looking for our district.
So how would you work with lawmakers from both parties to move legislation forward?
We're going to always look for areas of agreement. Where we can find agreement that's in the benefit of our community, I'm going to work towards that goal. Every issue we tackle, I'm going to consider, what's in my best judgment going to be good for our district. And if that means we can work with people from our party or from another party to get good results for our community, that's what I'm going to do.
So why should voters vote for you?
As I said, I love our community. And I'm serious about wanting our community to be the best place to raise a family and grow a business. I've lived in this community my whole life. I was born here in Vincennes, graduated from South Knox High School. My wife is from Bruceville. She went to North Knox High School, and today we live in our community where both sets of grandparents for our 4-year-old daughter reside as well. And that's such a blessing to have. I want to have a community that's thriving, where where multiple generations can live and to thrive in our community. Thank you very much.
And those are the Republican candidates running for House District 45 and Senate District 39. There are Democrat candidates running unopposed in both of those races. For House District 45, the candidate is Rebecca Dawn Mayfield, also known as Becky Mayfield. For Senate District 39, the Democratic candidate is Joseph Boffman of Vincennes. And again, we provided those candidates with the same set of questions used in our Republican interviews. Their responses available on our websites, wvub.org and vincennes.pbs.org. Another race affecting Knox County is House District 64. Republican incumbent Matt Hostetler running unopposed on that Republican ballot, and Candy Greer is running unopposed on the Democratic ballot. First Lady News also provided those candidates with the same set of questions, and again, their responses are available on our website. Election Day is May 5th. Early voting and polling information is available through the Knox County Clerk's Office. For First Lady News, I'm Dave Foster, and thank you again for watching.